Breaking down the budget, Prime Minister Mark Carney's highly anticipated first budget is here, including the largest deficit in 15 years outside of the pandemic and a big promise to catalyze private investment and economic growth. Now, with MP Chris D'Entremont's decision to cross the floor to the Liberals this week, Carney is just 2 seats shy of the majority he needs to pass the budget. The Tories in the bloc, meanwhile, have already said they won't support the bill, and the NDP says it's still mulling its vote. So, can the Liberals get the budget passed? The Scrum is here to dig into the politics at play. Stephanie Levitz is a senior reporter for the Globe and Mail. Brian Platt is a Canadian government reporter for Bloomberg, and David Coletto is the CEO of Abacus Data. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Good to have you here. David, I'll start with you. You've been out in the field. Did this budget land for Canadians?
I would say yes and no. I mean, 1 in 4 Canadians said they didn't even know there was a budget as of Thursday morning when we finished it. And that's not normal. I mean, sorry, that is normal. Okay. Not everybody follows what's going on here. But I think it's really a split decision, right? About half of those aware of the budget say they think this is a step in the right direction. The other half think it's not. And what we also learn is, though, when you dig deep and you actually ask people, like, do you think you're going to be better off because of this budget? Only 17% do, and a size of almost more than double that say they won't be. It will actually hurt them. And so I think there's still lots of room for the government to continue to sell this budget. But I think its biggest challenge is overwhelmingly people thought the deficit number way too high, that's a problem. And then the details got lost, I think, in the shuffle. And being able to articulate what this was about, very hard for Canadians at this moment.
Well, I wonder, Brian, if you have thoughts on that, because going into the budget, the narrative was kind of this dual track investment / austerity, which seems inherently contradictory. Did they make the message more concise on the other side of the budget?
I mean, it's an interesting budget because by the standards of Canadian politics, this is a huge deficit, right? I mean, this is way bigger than what Justin Trudeau ran outside of the COVID budget. A $78 billion deficit, and not getting that much smaller in the years ahead. It goes down to about 60. You know, Trudeau used to, when Trudeau came in, he was hammered for deficits that were 20 billion, a lot smaller. Clearly what Mark Carney's come in feeling is that Canada can afford to run much bigger deficits than it has been, and the question is what you spend money on. So that's where you get this balance, right? He's pulling back on what he calls the day-to-day sort of operational government spending, trying to direct that spending into capital. In this budget, the huge chunk of new spending in this budget was on defense. And I think the reason why it didn't make maybe a bigger splash, I mean, you know, my feeling is that this budget kind of landed with, you know, the news value of this budget was not as big as I thought it might be, and that's because the single biggest piece of this was defense, and we already knew that was coming.
What is your assessment of the way it landed, Steph?
It's interesting, you know, imagine if you ran David's poll, but you did it among CEOs, right? And you sort of surveyed that corporate landscape and said, okay, how many of you were aware of the budget? Well, probably all of them, right? But how would they take it? And even from that sector, even from the business sector, there's been a lot of, well, I thought it was going to be a bit bigger than that,
well,
right?
They build it, to be clear.
They just built it up so much. And then let's take the austerity piece, because we haven't really talked about that either, right? This idea that there were going to be widespread cuts, that everything was going to be different. It will take time, I think, for some of the decisions they're trying to make about the public sector to trickle down into cuts people can feel. But that's the place where maybe this budget will end up getting Canadians in the feels, right? Because it isn't handing like the Trudeau-era budgets did. It's not handing out new daycare programs, new dental, new pharma, new things that then, you know, as soon as the budget passes, you feel your life has changed. It's a long game budget on 2 fronts. The investment Mr. Carney is hoping to get from the private sector is going to take a very long time. But then the cuts and the way they might affect everyday Canadians' lives, I think that too is going to take quite a long time. So it's very much a wait-and-see budget.
Yeah, very much. What won't be as much wait-and-see is, you know, just over a week from now, a vote in the House of Commons about this. Any predictions about how that might go, David? And, you know, it really feels a lot less like there's an election on the other side of that.
It does. I think, you know, just observing what's happened this week on a bunch of fronts, it does feel like we're headed towards a place where this budget will likely pass, not with fanfare, but just barely. Because I think when you look even of public opinion around this, if you were one of the few Canadians who voted NDP in the last election, you have mixed views of the budget, but you're inclined to say, I want my MP to vote for it, as are almost every Liberal supporter in the country. And so I don't see an appetite for plunging the country into an election over this budget, despite the fact that no one loves it. no one really, I think, hates it at this point. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from the budget. Is it going to lift the Liberals' support? Probably not. But everybody who liked Mark Carney, trusted Mark Carney, voted for Mark Carney, still thinks this is part of his plan to get the country back on track.
That kind of lends itself to the point you were making, which I'll paraphrase you, Brian. Like, it was a bit of a meh compared to how the budget was built. But that meh also means, to David's point, you have nobody screaming it's the end of the world, and therefore likely, probably it will go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, this was an exercise in expectation setting, right? I mean, the Carney government and the finance minister were talking about this as a transformative budget. People expect transformation when that happens, and there wasn't really, I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff in here, and I think it does try to move public finances in a different direction. Bigger deficits with that money spent on more capital expenses. I think that, that's what he's trying to do, and I think it is interesting, but as to Steph's point, that's going to take a while to play out to see what the effect of that is. In the meantime, there wasn't really anything in here that you could say was a poison pill or a big, attractive piece for one of the other parties to go for, and so I think that's, that may help the budget pass ultimately.
And I mean, the poison pill we were really paying attention to, Steph, was whether it would relate to the NDP, right? Because the Conservatives in the bloc, more so the Conservatives, but both had made their views fairly known, had issued such a specific list of demands that seemed like there was no way that the government would be able to meet or would want to meet. The NDP very quickly seemed to indicate that poison pill wasn't there. They weren't thrilled, but they weren't saying it's over.
Not only was the poison pill not there, the government was sweetening the pot, like, to just keep going with the metaphor, right? Like in their $50 billion new infrastructure spend, they take a moment to list 23 community centers that are immediately getting funding. What is the community center quite literally at the top of that list? It's in the area represented by interim NDP leader Don Davies.
Ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding. And another NDP MP pointed out that there was things in there for aerial firefighting and firefighting supports from his riding that he's been asking for a long time. And you can almost, in some way, almost feel a bit bad for these guys. Like, I can see them going home to their ridings, which they've all said they're going to do this week, have a chat with their constituents, talk it over, and it's, to say, okay, well, if you vote down this budget, not only are we going into an election, you're also not getting this thing. I think most Canadians would look at that, especially the folks who would really like the aerial firefighting equipment, and say, I'd really like that. Can we just speed it along?
I got to leave it there. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it. Our Sunday Scrum, Stephanie Levitz, Brian Platt, and David Coletto. That does do it for us this week on Question Period. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. I'm Vashi Capellas. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow on Power Play. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend.